The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
Shall we begin?
Will Smith was certainly at a crossroads as his hit television show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air wound to a close in 1996. He knew that he had the potential to be an A-list leading man, and studios were certainly willing to roll the dice on his dramatic potential. But his proven marketability was still grounded in his charming wisecracker persona, and his earliest films lean heavily on that. I'm Todd.
And I'm Dave, and we like to talk about spy movies.
1998's Enemy of the State is a perfectly pivotal role for Smith. His character starts out with Smith's trademark joke-heavy, what, me worry attitude, but over the course of the film, Jon Voight's villainous oppression literally wipes the smile off his face, teaching him that he needs to take things very, very seriously. How seriously do we take this tale of criminal NSA overreach? That's going to be the topic of this episode of Spies Like Us. Enemy of the State is a 1998 film, contemporary events to that year. Featured agencies, we got mostly the NSA. It's kind of a NSA versus democracy kind of flick. Mentions of the NRO as an unwitting partner of the NSA, the FBI, and Mafia will make appearances that are small but important to the plot. It's kind of a man who knew too much sort of story or variation. In fact, I had been thinking just that if they had kidnapped Will Smith's daughter, then it would have been very much the man who knew too much. They don't kidnap his daughter, but in one of the briefings, someone actually does suggest it.
His wife and son.
I think the first thing people say or think about it is that it's really weird that this movie came out before 9/11, as it seems to be eerily prescient regarding NSA domestic surveillance abuses.
This was pre the discussion of American privacy, and going back and seeing it now was kind of eerie considering the events that followed. So it was interesting to go back and watch it.
And you had seen this movie before, you said.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I don't know, high school time was probably when I first started, even hearing about the concept of conspiracies. And so I read a little bit into it. And so this was a movie I wanted to watch when it had come out. But oddly enough, it actually kind of helped curb me away from going down crazy rabbit holes. Just watching Gene Hackman living in his little cage and Will Smith's comment about it. You can see those types that they just see what they want to see anywhere they go. And so it kind of was helpful in the opposite way, I guess, of what the film was trying to accomplish. It helped me kind of keep my head straight and not fall into those weird, crazy rabbit holes that you can go down if you start even looking at anything conspiracy related.
Is that because you didn't find the movie to be especially plausible?
Oh, I found it very plausible. At that point, I was already aware of a lot of tech and the idea that surveillance had been happening. And, what is this, 98? Would have been well after The Family Jewels came out, right? And so there was already enough information to know that there had been domestic surveillance going on. But I meant more the movie was plausible to me. It was more not going down, the lizard people. If you ever try and even look into any kind of conspiracy, it goes way off the reservation, far, far off, out in left field, and you start reading about lizard people and you start reading about the aliens and you start reading, and I was just this I would see people that would talk about stuff like that, and you could see that they had just gone down this deep hole in that they couldn't get themselves out of, because everywhere they looked was a conspiracy. And it was the characterization of kind of Hackman's character, where he's just living in a cage, isolated from the world because he can't trust anybody. it was something that kind of really had a big impression on me at that time.
I remember seeing the trailers of the film and feeling a little turned off. I didn't see it when it came out. I thought that it looked to me to be quite a bit like paranoid and hand-wringy, and also and also super Bruckheimer in a way that I like some Bruckheimer films for sure, but this one didn't look great to me. I was pleasantly surprised. I found this one to be really actually a lot of fun to watch. I've decided this is how I want to describe the work of Mr. Bruckheimer. I think his movies are like you go to the store and you buy the most expensive, like super fine cut of steak, and then you throw it on the barbecue, burn it to a crisp, and drown it in barbecue sauce. You know what I'm saying?
Pretty good. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
I can't think of another producer that has such what I want to say, like, deep fingerprints on the movies he produces. I feel like when you're telling someone what to expect from a film, it's more important to tell them that Bruckheimer produced it than it is to tell them who directed it.
Right. That's probably the few times like the producer's going to make a huge difference as far as the feel of the movie.
Speaking of directors, this is our second appearance on our show from Tony Scott, who also directed Spy Game, which we liked quite a bit. The script, it's David Marconi. It seems to be his most notable script. But I noticed it received 3 uncredited rewrites, including one by Aaron Sorkin.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Who was, this was like maybe like his final gig as a script doctor, which he'd been doing for this studio. I forget what studio this comes out of, but he'd been doing that.
It was Touchstone, I think.
Okay. Yeah, he'd been script doctoring for them for about 10 years. This is like right before, like he must have already been in negotiations or whatever, or pre-production on The West Wing.
Right.
Because it comes out pretty soon after that. And then he becomes more of a showrunner and producer than just a writer. The other guy, then there's another guy who I looked up and I can't find anything on him. But another of the people that did a pass on this script was Tony Gilroy, who we would know most for writing the first 4 Jason Bourne films. And, surprise to me, was the co-writer of Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, that explains a lot.
Yeah, there's some Bourne-y stuff in this one. Yeah. Especially the we talked about in the Bourne Supremacy that the surveillance state, the global surveillance government apparatus is kind of like this omniscient presence that almost feels like a nameless, faceless character. Mm-hmm. In this film, we see the surveillance state operating at perhaps somewhat slightly ridiculous levels of efficiency.
Yeah.
But in this case, instead of being faceless, it's very, very personalized in watching the people that are operating these operations. We have, of course, John Voight in charge, Jamie someone, and then they throw in a couple of one of them very enthusiastic, but fairly enthusiastic Gen Xers, Seth Green and Jack Black.
Right.
As our operator types.
It was pretty fun to see them in like a not goofy role. I mean, they still kind of played the kind of rebel young hacker type. That you'll see in a lot of these movies.
Jack really only has one comedic bit where he's like going off over a Latina nanny's unshaved legs.
Yeah.
There's definitely humor in this film.
Right.
Not that it's a comedy, but they don't miss opportunities to have jokes. I thought Seth Green was kind of weird here.
Yeah.
as far as like, I mean, he really, really seems into it.
Yeah.
And the way his lines are written and stuff, it just feels like he's a much more like hard bitten veteran than he should be for someone of his age.
Right.
But beside it being kind of weird, I kind of liked it. I mean, I liked his kind of enthusiasm, his lust for the hunt was kind of infectious. And at the end of the film, when they're interrogating Black and Green about what they knew, and Seth says like, "Oh, well, I just thought it was a training exercise." And this is just one of my final thoughts because I just rewatched the ending a little bit. Was I was like, Seth, I don't believe you. I mean, it's definitely strains credibility that either of them think this is a training exercise, at least after the first few beats of the film. And at least Jack Black seems to be developing some kind of second thoughts. He's raising his hand and kind of offering like, they're saying like, this means this. And Jack Black's like, well, maybe it just means he was going for a walk or whatever. But I think a smarter movie would have maybe involved these guys getting a little more antsy about what they're involved in.
Right.
Like I like the idea that maybe Seth Green just doesn't give a shit, but maybe, and please, like the movie's long enough, but I think a smarter movie maybe would have paid a little more attention to Jack Black's increasing kind of concern about what's really going on. Enough about those guys, though. I want to flag this as a pretty important movie in Will Smith's career. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is still on the air in 1996. And he had just launched his solo music career. Of course, he had the DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince kind of thing earlier. But music career based on the success of his Men in Black theme song. He had already done Bad Boys and he had already done Men in Black, but this is actually, I think you could say technically, this is Will Smith's first turn at playing the solo leading man of the film. You could kind of argue that Men in Black is technically like it's from his point of view. Mm-hmm. But I went back and I looked at the posters and he is second billed on that. It's Mr. Jones first.
I actually looked this up and his first lead role was 6 Degrees of Separation or something.
That
it wasn't like a big film at all, so it wouldn't have been an impact. But like, yeah, as far as scale of film, I think this is probably
Have you seen 6 Degrees?
I have not.
He is definitely not a leading man in that film.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah, no. He's a charming stranger with a dark past. Like all the main characters. It's based on a play, and I think you could say it's kind of a story about the main characters falling under his spell as being super charming, and then slowly learning that there's a lot more to him than meets the eye. Definitely a great piece of acting by Will Smith, but totally different than anything he did after. It's very artsy, I would say.
Oh, well, I'm going to have to add this to my list.
We mentioned that, I mean, there is some, this movie leaves some room for some jokes or winks at the camera kind of stuff anyways. But I also might say that, no, I haven't seen Bad Boys, but I assume that it's quippy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, right. So this was also the first time Will Smith was being asked to play like a straight no zingers kind of role. Or at least like more serious than he had before.
He's got a lot of zingers, but it's much more serious than he's played before.
Right. And he said in an interview that I saw that actually that was kind of a struggle for him to restrain his comedic instincts.
Oh, okay.
A great example of that is when Scott Kahn asks him if he bought the lingerie for his wife, and he says, "No, I bought it for himself. I like to do a little cross-dressing on the weekends." Apparently, that line was improvised. That was just he just couldn't help himself.
He had to throw it in there.
Yep. We've got, just another, awesome day at the office for Gene Hackman. Looking over at his career, it just seems so consistent, like over the entire span of movies that he's done. His final film was in 2004. I hate when I go back and I notice that, like, these actors that I really love, that, like, they're never going to make another movie again. It makes me sad. Hackman's another repeat to our podcast, having been kind of on the opposite side of things in a way, story-wise, in No Way Out, right? Like, he could be considered kind of analogous to, Hackman's character in No Way Out could be kind of analogous to the John Voight.
Yeah, he was
role in this one.
Yeah, kind of the villain.
John Voight, who is the villain in this movie, actually, he had just also done Heat and Mission Impossible, but these three films mark a kind of beginning of a major return of John Voight to the screen. He was largely absent for the 15 years prior to this, almost entirely.
Oh, so this is kind of like a return?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, I remember when I, started seeing John Voight in films, and people would say, like, "Oh, he's an amazing actor." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? He's only done, like, a couple things." But I've never seen, what it is, something Cowboy? Midnight Cowboy or something like that?
Midnight Cowboy.
Isn't he known for? All right.
He's known for a lot, but I think that's the one that everybody will bring up. That's like the classic. He was also in Deliverance.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, of course. A lot of critics make reference to the movie The Conversation from 1974 when discussing this film, to the point where on IMDb, one of the top most frequently asked questions is whether or not Gene Hackman is the same character in this movie as he played in The Conversation. Because
that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm. He dresses the same, and his workshop is notably similar. I'm not sure if it has that Faraday cage in it in 1974, but it might. And when they do find him in this movie, when they do finally track down his identity, the picture that comes up in his file is actually a picture of his character from The Conversation.
Oh, really? Nice. Well, clearly there's something going on there. That's a definite homage from the director.
Right. And even though he's got a different name, it's entirely plausible to think that, the character he's playing definitely would have changed his name by now, right? So
yeah,
I would say it could be the same guy. We mentioned that the NSA wasn't happy about this. Let's see. I've read, like, people literally, like, seeing the movie and, like, running home to call their bosses and saying, "What the fuck?" There's even a report, I guess, in one of the flybys over, there's a lot of, it's not really satellite imagery, but it's supposed to be in the film. And I guess there's a shot that shows, like, an actual, because they're showing, like, NSA headquarters or something. And there's an actual NSA agent that's in the shot that tried to sue them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Unsuccessfully. We've mentioned that the fallout from 9/11 precipitates a move by U.S. intelligence agencies to improve their image. And some of that appears to be trying to work hand in hand with Hollywood to put more pro-intelligence agency stuff out there. Definitely the director of the NSA cited this movie particularly as, like, this is the kind of image of us that we can't just let go unchallenged.
Right. Well, you know what? Like, even though, like, on the surface it makes the NSA look bad, John Voight's character was only like an assistant to the deputy director. Like, the wife was talking about how he would be
Uh-huh.
he should have been like 3 years ago or something. And and then even Hackman's character talked about how much he loved the agency. He was like a veteran. He was like a former NSA agent himself. So it, in the background, there's like some positive stuff. Like, they tried to. It seems like the storytellers, or at least the director, wanted to say, "Oh, it's not all the NSA. It's just here's this like power hungry guy." But just if you just a first pass of the film, it does not leave a good feeling about the NSA back then and even now. And I think it's even creepier, going back and watching it now, because the whole point of the story was that John Voight's character was trying to get a bill passed to increase surveillance. And that's what the Patriot Act accomplished, post 9/11. And creepier enough, I made Todd stop the movie and go back and go back, because when Hackman looks up Voight's character, he gets his birth date and it's 9/11/40. So I don't know if you want to kind of just try and like grab the low hanging fruit for that, or if it's an accident. But it was really creepy seeing it now than it was back then, and it was already kind of creepy watching the surveillance back then in this film. I would say it doesn't paint a great light for the NSA, but I definitely understand that the feelings that people who are working for the agency might have felt, because it's kind of like, it's not helpful, in some ways, even though it's trying to be enlightening in most ways, I guess. I don't know. It was interesting. It was just kind of creepy going back and watching it now.
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So should we give it minus spy points for the filmmakers for leaving a clue in their film that 9/11 was in fact an inside job?
Right. Right. Yeah, it makes me concerned about Jerry Bruckheimer. Like, if that wasn't an accident, that makes me wonder like what his affiliations are. Because I'm definitely not like those people that think the government was behind 9/11. But like, clearly something was going on. You know what I mean? And so if this little Easter egg here from a film, 1998, comes out, it's a little concerning for Bruckheimer. In fact, watching it now makes Bruckheimer look worse than the NSA does, as far as I'm concerned. Either that or the director. Was it Tony Scott?
Tony Scott, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently Tony Scott, a lot of his films deal with surveillance kind of issues. I put another movie on our list, Deja Vu.
Okay.
I still got to look into that in a little more detail. And speaking of detail...
Retinal scan complete. Validating security clearance. Clearance granted. You may now enter the briefing room.
I like this opening scene with Voight and Robards for its efficiency.
Yeah.
They very quickly establish what the background stakes of the film are, which is security versus freedom.
Right.
And it's done very efficiently. Boom, we got our setup, the event, the murder of it's Jason, right? Jason Robards, senator character that's going to...
He was a congressman, but he also called him Mr. Chairman.
Right.
So I think he's kind of like a higher level congressman. I think you mentioned it was kind of like a McConnell type of situation.
Right. He's a senator that's got clout. He's got the ability to bully his other members into voting for this, basically, Patriot Act before the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny thing about that, it just bears mentioning that Voight is so keen on getting this bill passed. It's so important to him that he's going to murder a U.S. senator. when throughout the film we see him basically just free-handedly doing all the shit that you imagine that this act would let him do.
I think we both kind of were like, why was this murder necessary? I understand what he's trying to do with the conversation. He's just saying, like, look, I'm not telling you to vote for the bill, but just kind of let your fellow congressmen, your fellow reps or whatever, like, make their own vote and their own decisions. Because you couldn't control the entirety of legislation, but you could make some influential moments, and that's kind of what he's doing. He even gets to the point where he tries to blackmail him. The murder was kind of silly. The murder itself was well executed. It was quick and clean and whatever, and then they planted the pills to make it look like he OD'd or something. I don't understand like what the murder is going to accomplish. Like, I was thinking that maybe it would help their other guy that's really behind the bill climb up to be a chairman, but I don't see any evidence of that in the film because he doesn't climb. He's still just the guy that's kind of the major face behind the bill.
Right. Yeah, because there is that other senator that's on the news with Larry King, and that guy's very, very pro this act, and maybe we could have had a little bit more connective tissue to say like that somehow that guy was like next in line, that guy would be, that Robard's death would have put him in the driver's seat somehow, maybe.
Mm-hmm. We didn't get to see any of that. So Todd and I are still kind of baffled as to what's going on with this plan that Voight has. But no, I agree with you. The opening scene was great to watch, but when you kind of like dig into it, you're kind of like, wait, what? Why?
Right.
Yeah.
Bruckheimer's barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
we're there. Voight's guy. Jamie Kennedy. That's the guy whose name I was thinking of. That's like Voight's kind of right hand man. He finds out near instantly what the cops know, which is by the way that the murder was accidentally videotaped by our Jason Lee, natural photographer, or I don't know.
He was like a journalist and an environmental proponent, and he was videotaping geese migration, like Canadian geese migration. So he had this hidden video camera set up to watch geese, and it caught the footage of the murder.
Right. And the fact that Jamie Kennedy finds out so quickly, because it's a cop that notices, like, hey, there was a video of it, which it's funny, like the cops, I guess, the Voight and his guys are so much faster on the case than the cops are. And come to think of it, the cops never followed through.
Well, that cop was working for him. He called Voight. I think he was undercover working for Voight. That you're talking about the guy that noticed the camera?
Okay, because that was my first thought, that I thought he was a plant that was in there. So yeah, I like that better. Because I got that feeling from him.
Yeah, that phone call that he made and that whole conversation that they had, that was the other end was Voight, and then you saw that he was like, "Oh, I hate doing this at Christmas."
Right.
Yeah.
He launches into his operational mode with zero hesitation. Also scary. Very, very efficient. No nonsense. I wanted to delve into some of the orders that he gives and some of the acronyms that get thrown around. We get a little acronym salad in this film. A fair helping on the side of our Bruckheimer barbecue. Let's see. We need 2 techs with full electronic capabilities, 2 Humpty Dumptys. Now, I'm going to assume that the guys that they end up getting refer to Jack Black and Seth Green. So, okay, 2 techs with full electronic capabilities, 2 Humpty Dumptys. I really searched I put my due diligence in. I cannot figure out what a Humpty Dumpty is.
Right.
I have never heard that term before used in spy parlance. Do you have any thoughts?
No, I think that's what you're talking about is our Seth Green and Jack Black character is probably what it is. But I've never heard that either. It's not on the Spy Museum glossary.
I mean, he did sit on a wall.
Right. Yeah.
Or I also thought, let's see. Oh yeah, there's also some kind of reference to the Humpty Dumpty character in Alice in Wonderland as being like like dumb, ignorant. And
maybe it could be somebody that doesn't know any better or something.
Yeah, I guess. He also wants some ex-military cutouts. And I like the sound of that term. What's a cutout? What do we think about that?
Well, cutout is some like an intermediary. But I don't know why they would call those guys cutouts, because if we're thinking the two guys that he's calling cutouts are the, well, I guess so. They would be it's basically the separation between Voight and the operation. But a cutout is generally like someone that's on the communication trail. So you give a thing to a guy and the guy gives it to the head guy. The middle guy would be the cutout.
Right. The most extensive thing I found regarding cutouts was like scientists that were giving talks at conferences that were being secretly paid by the CIA to give those talks and to point the discussion in certain directions. And the thing I noted on that, at least on that operation or set of operations, was that there was a note that like each cutout knew that he was helping the CIA, but didn't know why, and the agency would only use him once. So I think that fits in with the idea of separation. Mm-hmm. Like these are guys that if they talk, well, they can only talk about just one specific thing, and they really don't know what's going on above them. You're gonna use them once and then cut them loose, never use them again, and I guess that creates the separation. I like the term.
Yeah.
I hope we're understanding it well. Set up a link with the NRO, he says, which is what they're going to need to get access to the satellite, which plays such a prominent role in the film. The NRO, of course, the National Reconnaissance Office, primarily responsible for our global spying surveillance satellite system. Got to see them most in action in our episode about Pine Gap. Mm-hmm. And the last thing in there is he says falsify FBI approval. This is a shrug from me, but I'll pitch it to you. Do you think the NSA actually needs FBI approval for anything they want to do?
I'm not sure. Unless it's like domestic stuff, because FBI would be in charge of domestic surveillance, and they would need warrants or something. But the fact that they would need FBI approval kind of kills a lot of the plot, though, because presumably at the end, they didn't even know the FBI was watching that mob group. So I don't know, it's a little confusing why you would ask for that.
Okay.
But this goes back to your Bruckheimer salad, like he's just throwing stuff out to sound cool, maybe.
There's a few more of those. We're not out of the salad yet.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Let's jump ahead a little to some more salad. This is when they we're gonna jump ahead to when they get a line in that Will Smith might be a person of interest. And dude says, we're going to need a FinCEN, an EPIC, and a DRD workup on this guy. So let's Google some acronyms here. FinCEN, that one came up pretty clean. That's obviously going to be the Financial Crime Enforcement Network. That's a branch of the Treasury Department, which provides intelligence and analytics to law enforcement agencies, mostly regarding money laundering, but also some other financial crimes. Mm-hmm. It makes sense to me that they would look at Will Smith to see if there's anything there. I don't think they found anything, but they did plant some false accusations against Smith, presumably using that network.
Well, this is what they used to watch Will Smith's character and Lisa Bonet, her character, which is Rachel Banks, they noticed regular transactions coming out of Will Smith's account and equaling the ones that are coming into Rachel Banks's account. I kind of wanted to mark a little plus spy points on using that. I mean, like, when you're looking at targeting and you're watching your target, financial transactions are obviously really important. And you got this guy that's just giving money to this person that he's clearly doesn't want to be seen watching. By the way, Rachel Banks would be a cutout, since we just talked about a cutout, because she's the link between Will Smith and Brill. So to prevent the two of them being seen together, there's this intermediary, and so Rachel would have been the cutout. And so what he's doing is paying her for information. She gets the information from Brill, but our NSA guys don't know about that. They just know that Will Smith is a married man meeting with this woman regularly and giving her money. So they're going to use that information as leverage against him, or possibly use it as leverage against him.
Right. And also wonder, like, what's going on there. Like, blackmail is suggested, as whether or not maybe he's being blackmailed by someone. And if so, then that would indicate that there's something there that maybe you can find out about and leverage against him. Epic is a little shakier. The closest I can come on that is the El Paso Intelligence Center, which runs under the Drug Enforcement Agency, although it does have 21 other agency partners. They mostly seem to be focused on Mexico and South America, to be honest. The southwestern border. They operate within the United States, but I think these are the guys that you'd be more likely to go and ask them if they knew anything about drug cartel activities in the U.S. than what we see here, because they say they want an Epic run on Will Smith, and later in the film, it's Epic that returns the information on Gene Hackman. So it's kind of like in the ballpark, but not quite on base, I would say.
Right.
That the Epic computer system, but it's also possible they just thought Epic was a cool acronym, and that this has nothing to do with the El Paso intelligence.
Yeah, right. Well, it could have been they were just trying to see if he had any drug connections of any sort or whatever.
Hey, sure, why not?
I guess. I mean, they're just looking for as much leverage as they can get. But I mean, I agree with you. It was kind of a lot. I feel like this all sounds really cool. So let's just have them like just barf out a bunch of acronyms and it'll sound cool.
And then the least substantiated of the acronyms that they're tossing around is the DRD. I couldn't find, I mean, you and I, we both found lists. Yours was longer than mine. I think you found like a list of 44 possible meanings of DRD. What do you think is your most plausible matching acronym?
Well, I found two that when I went through them that probably made the most sense. It was like data requirements document, which is like we have to figure out what we need to. We don't know what we need to know, so we need to figure out what it is we need to know so that we know what data would be required to fulfill what we need to know, type of thing. So that's that. And then there was like a decision resource database, which I'm not even sure what that is. But to be honest, there were so many DRD acronyms. I found like a list of military and government acronyms, and none of them really made sense. So I'm not sure. But we're just going to stick with the Bruckheimer fun salad to go with the burnt steak.
Sure. Yeah. Some decent points for FinCEN, some lesser points for Epic, and no points for DRD as far as factoring into the park bench rating of this film.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sorry. We did jump ahead. Did we? Or are we cool here?
No, we're good.
They are going to, they're going to get Jack Black on the line first. At first, I thought maybe he was working for the NRO because he does have the satellite access.
Mhm.
But now I'm not really sure about that. I'm not sure that the NRO is actually shown in this film. I think Jack and Seth are actually NSA. I can't be 100% sure, but they're calling him to get the wiretap, and he's like, well, what's the authorization on it? And they say, oh, it's been FBI approved. This is just Jamie Kennedy on the phone saying it's been approved. It's a training operation, and Jack Black just takes his word for it. And I think there should be a lot. I mean, I know there should be, and I think there would be a lot more paperwork involved in this. And so I'll throw out some minus spy points on that. Also, I mean, increasingly, as I mentioned, that even if at the beginning of this film, Jack and Seth are under the delusion that this is just a training exercise, the events of the film should really very quickly show them that it's not.
Right.
At this point, this is before Will Smith has entered the scene. They're going to go first after Jason Lee. That's our nature scientist guy with the videotape. He makes a copy of it. You know, they never found the original, which should have just been still.
Well, they mentioned it that when they raided the house, that's how they figured out he made a copy. So presumably they would have shut down the original, because it would have been at Jason. Because remember, they listened in to.
Oh,
Jason
right,
Lee
but them having the original doesn't let them off the hook.
They need the copy.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they made a jump in logic in assuming there was a copy, but at least they threw out some justification for it, that he definitely had the capability of making a copy.
Right.
With all his video editing software. They call in the as Jason Lee makes a break for it, that's when they, yell at Jack Black over their comms, like, we need a satellite view of what's going on. And he's got to give the instructions for that. I think they should have had that satellite watching his place in advance. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's what Voight asked for, and I'm pretty sure that's what Jack Black said, like, it's already done. Mm-hmm. So just a little sloppiness there for Mr. Black. Don't wait until the guy is running across the rooftops to start telling the satellite what to focus on. You could have just been focusing on his house in the first place. Let's also mention that when they are calling out these eye in the sky satellites to pinpoint and give them a view of what's going on the ground, they yell out longitude, latitude, and hours and minutes, which is accurate to about a square mile. So in reality, they would have to give a little more information to get the satellite to see what they're trying to see. It also seems, I don't know, a little weird to me. Like a lot of times, like, they know the satellite only knows where to look because they tell it where to look because they know where the guy is, which seems like it kind of defeats the purpose of the satellite. Just overall, the I think the surveillance capabilities of satellites are great for sure. I was just listening to Spycast had a NRO historian talk about this. He mostly talked about stuff from the 60s and 70s, which was unfortunate because I was really hoping to hear about like what the real capabilities of these satellites would have been in 98. But I feel like the surveillance capabilities of these satellites are, at least definitely in 1998, more about like monitoring communications than they are particularly useful at quickly, like in the moment of an action Bruckheimer car chase kind of thing, dialing in on like a moving target on the ground. They are also definitely supplementing their surveillance web with full access to all of the security cameras in the area. Seems like, at least, I'm pretty sure I see shots where they're accessing even private security cameras.
Yeah, the store that he ran in through, which is how we get the connection. Apparently, he went to college with Will Smith, and they're in like a lingerie store, and they got access to the security cameras. I know the internet was around in '98, and but I know a lot of stores didn't have security cams on the internet like we do today. Like, you can get those cams for home, or like they have those doorbells now that like film their motion activated.
Sure.
And so I presume somebody at that level of access to stuff could get into that, but I don't know how a local security cam that's probably not on the internet would have been accessed. But again, I have heard some crazy science stories reading, there's that spycraft documentary on Netflix, and then reading Snowden's book and reading some other stuff about tech that's been around for a long time. Even when we had Francis on the show, they could they knew what type of car was started just by listening to the sound of the starter. So maybe there's some crazy high-tech thing, but like I don't really know if it's that plausible that in '98 you could access a local security cam footage.
Well, right, yeah,
quickly.
I think this is the era where you'd have to go and like ask the store manager to take you to the VHS tape,
right, or whatever disc or whatever they were using to record. You would have to ask the manager for their footage. I don't know that you could just like hack into it.
Right. Well, Jason Lee's not using a digital camera for his work.
Right, which is why they had to. Right, that's why I'm confused. Why would the lingerie store's security camera be accessible in '98? It's probably not on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? That kind of bothered me. But regardless, when they start going through it, and like they'd even mentioned their software was making like kind of hypotheses or guesses. So they kind of had they were trying to figure out if he dropped the tape into Will Smith's bag. They do this cool like camera spin around. So it's basically like the logic of the software making guesses off the light and stuff like that, and the shape. So that was kind of cool, and that was kind of plausible, but just being able to access the camera like that without getting it from the manager was kind of like unbelievable. But I did like the table talk. We mentioned this earlier in the intro that, Jack Black's kind of always playing devil's advocate, but, I always really enjoy seeing some amount of analysis in spy films because we don't get a lot of it. So there's like 2 or 3 scenes where everybody's around a table having a conversation, trying to make a guess about something. It's really quick, but it's a nice little touch to some amount of analysis. And that's kind of what they're doing is they're using this software to kind of make kind of guesses based on the light and stuff like that to where, well, does this bag have something new in it? Or is it just kind of like somebody moved weird or something?
Well, I was going to talk about this later, but you've invested enough into the topic that I got to go and say okay. I didn't like this part, and it was my number 3 worst tradecraft. The spinning around the subject that we see. Let's remember this is like almost the same. It might even be. It's very close to the same year as The Matrix, which made like bullet time super like. After The Matrix, everything was fucking bullet time, right?
Yeah,
like it was fucking goddamn everywhere. So it's a super new, like clever toy that filmmakers really want to play with. But I don't buy it in the way that it, that they can have the computer extrapolate what could have been happening like on the other side of where the camera is. And especially the stuff with the bag. Like because again, they had to go onto the other side. So how does the computer have any fucking idea what's going on over there? Did not like that part. And of all the, let's see. I mean, I think that the tech in this movie is, because I think it's super science fiction for 1998. A lot of it. A lot of it I don't think is science fiction anymore. And we'll have some other notes on that. But I wanted to at least flag this one as like, bullshit. This is not how it works. But on the other hand, we're at the Bruckheimer barbecue, and I appreciate a movie that if it's going to do shit like this, let me know early so I can settle back in my chair and say, okay, this is the kind of movie I'm watching. No problem.
Right.
It makes all the rest of the medicine go down a lot easier.
Right.
Jason Lee gets waxed by a bus. And now we're on to, and this is our, Jason Lee is our, whatchamacallit, what's his name? Our Leslie Banks? No, not Leslie Banks, but the guy from The Man Who Knew Too Much. The Frenchman. Louis Bernard.
Louis Bernard.
Right? Yeah, Jason Lee is our Louis Bernard. And
guys passing the info. Yeah. Now I'm starting to see The Man Who Knew Too Much that you were talking about.
Right before he gets killed. And then Will Smith is our Leslie Banks, or our Jimmy Stewart character.
Right.
He's got information, except at least in The Man Who Knew Too Much, like he knew he had something.
He knew something.
He didn't know what it was.
Right.
In this case, Will Smith is completely fucking clueless that that something's been passed to him. But that's going to put them onto Will Smith. They're going to check in with him. Well, I mean, they're going to tap his phones. I think they're going to say, like, we need a FinCEN, an Epic, a DRD, do all the salad stuff that we talked about. They're going to pay a visit to his home. I doubt, but don't know whether the NSA can legally pose as local police with local badges. But,
I would think they couldn't legally do it anywhere, but it would be even worse domestically to do, I guess, right? Unless there's some sort of counterintelligence thing going on. But I would think the FBI would have been in charge. But like you had said, they're doing everything that they wanted the bill to pass. So this is definitely all highly illegal.
Right. Yeah.
But I enjoyed their cover story, though. I thought they did a great job, or, the writer, director, whoever, creating the cover story where they're like, we heard that you might have, witnessed the death of, this guy, and we're investigating possible extortion involvement or something. Did he give you any sensitive information or sensitive material? I thought it was a great, cover for them. Like, why are you at my house? Like, well, we know you were there. We found this card on his person. We just wanted to know if he gave you anything or what. It was great, but what I really wanted to give some minus by points was pulling the Rachel Banks card, because they were like, oh, you were at a lingerie store. And this is where that line you talked about where Will Smith improv'd. And then he goes, oh, no, I like to do cross. It's for your wife, right? And then they go, well, we thought it might be for Rachel Banks. And that's when Will Smith was like, good night, gentlemen. This conversation's over. I don't think that would have been the greatest time to start, like, strong-arming leverage. Like, you want him trusting you as much as possible. I mean, I know there's, like, time sensitivity going on, but they're already planning on breaking in and doing surveillance on him. I don't know why you would want to have him suspicious of you.
You're 100%. You're 100% right.
So I'm gonna make this my number 3 worst tradecraft. Was even bringing up Rachel Banks. You're coming in posing like, oh, we think the guy might have been involved in some amount of extortion or something. Did he give you information? Oh, no, he didn't give me anything. Like, oh, so you were going to the lingerie. Was that for your wife? We thought it was about Rachel Banks. They just literally showed their hand. They were like, we know a lot about you. Mm-hmm. And, in which they already know he's an attorney. So I don't know why they would think this is a good move. So yeah, let's make it my number 3 worst tradecraft.
Not a good move. Good catch.
Yeah.
Speaking again of illegal, I'm pretty sure that, because they're videoing that interaction. I guess they've got some secret body cams. So again, we've established these guys don't really give a shit about legality. So I'll just go on and say, like, I like the fact that someone is furiously scribbling exact notes about what kind of pen he has, what kind of watch he has, what kind of cell phone he has, etc. This is all plus 5 points for me, so that they can plant their reasonable duplicates in his stuff later, a little bit later, when he's out rowing with his buddy.
Right. That was kind of cool that how they waited to, it would be a lot easier to plant that stuff when he's out rowing with his buddy because he's going to have a locker room or something, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Rather than getting into his home or something and raising any amount of suspicion or what, I thought that was clever. It is in a public space though. There was no one there, so presumably not a lot of people row over there. I don't know, but I thought it was clever.
Real soon, I want to have a discussion on the exact technology that they're using, that they're planting in his watch, his phone, his pen, his zipper, his pants, his shoe, all that stuff. But they also, as part of this operation, they're also going to do, they want to search his house, which is great. I forget. I guess this happened before. I forget if it happened before they replaced his stuff with rowing, when he was rowing, or after, but it's not that important. What's important to me is that when they toss his house, obviously their primary objective is to look for the tape. Not finding that, they trash the place and make it look like a major act of vandalism, and kind of like make some moves to make it look like it's just some, anarchist kids, just being hooligans, which is a nice little touch, I think, on, if you're going to toss the place, it's nice to have that little bit of cover, can kind of close down some of the suspicion loops that Will Smith, his character, might go through. And they put up all their quick, fast surveillance. They really love putting cameras and smoke detectors in this film. I think that's their favorite place to put cameras. That gives them enough of a bead on Will Smith that they're going to also catch when he contacts Lisa Bonet, and so that they know that he's going to meet her in the square. And so they can have a massive surveillance operation to know everything that they talk about. And this, I mean, I don't know. You tell me, how'd you like this scene?
I thought it was cool because they had those directional mics, and they had people planted all over the place, and a lot of them were kind of dressed up like they were homeless or whatever, and it was a lot of team, so I kind of liked the teamwork aspect, so they could catch as much as they could. I don't know that they, considering the technology that they were establishing in this film, I don't know that they needed all of those mics. They probably could have used something else.
I think it was a bit overplanned. I wonder, isn't any of the tech that they planted on him capable of just recording his voice, recording conversations that he's having
with people next to him? They got his pen and his pager and his pants and his shoes. Well, those were all GPS, weren't they? That's how they were tracking him, his location. So maybe those weren't sound bugs; they were just GPS locators.
Right. And so them needing, them needing a line of sight. Seth Green makes a point of that, that we have to have line of sight to hear them. I think that only applies to laser microphones, and I don't think this is the right application for those. Laser microphones pick up sound basically by beating off the vibrations of thin materials.
Well, there's those weird like sniper mics, right? Those skinny ones. Like I think they showed we got a shot of one of them. They kind of look like I don't know space rays or something. They're called like directional mics, I think.
Yeah, that was the big problem that I had and sometimes have when researching for these episodes is, when I go Googling to try to find out like what the capabilities of certain devices are, like you can often find information on like what the capabilities of the very earliest ones are and information on what the capabilities of the very latest ones are. But finding out like what exactly was possible in 1998 can be very difficult.
Right. But yeah, that link I just sent you is kind of what I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't find anything that looks like what I remember. But when the guy opened his bag and it was like that long rod, that's kind of what I would think. And line of sight, I believe, would have blocked that. Because you're picking up... those were meant for like long range from what I remember. And so I guess if someone was in the way, you couldn't pick up the sound waves or something.
Well, if anyone's got any actual expertise in this area, definitely hit us up on Facebook. We would love to hear
Absolutely.
Anybody knows about this stuff. Some people, we're in LA. There's a lot of movie production people that know a lot about, just in the making of a movie often requires like capturing audio at a distance and restricting what other sounds are coming in on your stuff. But I do want to circle back real soon on the tech. But before we do that, let's just wrap up like this whole Jon Voight plan, like all the I don't know, psychological and tactical approaches that they're using. They're going to at some point decide this is kind of after he's divested himself of his tracking devices. I guess they make the decision to murder Lisa Bonet's character and try to frame him for that, which would make him easier to track, being on, wanted for murder. Mm-hmm. I'm iffy on giving this plus spy points because I'm not convinced this is warranted.
Well, to be honest, I mean, like I know we're gonna get there kind of soon, but I wanted to mark just the whole screwing with Will Smith's life. This goes back to my bringing up Rachel in the first place, showing their hand. Like the whole ruining Will Smith's life, I think I wanted to mark as my number one worst tradecraft. Like they could have gotten a lot more information and understanding about him without revealing themselves. Like the fact that they were so heavy-handed on him is more like kind of like a extortion type of an approach. Using like I'm going to cut all your credit cards. I'm going to make your wife upset. I'm going to do all this other stuff. You got to tell us what you know. Like he obviously doesn't know anything at this point. Like what? I don't think they gain anything by going to these extremes. And I think the murder of Rachel and trying to frame him for it, I think you really hit the core of just to the degree they were willing to go. And it wasn't like he could do anything. He didn't even know that he had anything. He thought the mob that he was working with, like the rival mob guys that were trying to ruin his life, like it totally backfired. And it ended up making them get more caught. If they were more like okay about stuff or like did a better, like kind of more of a hands-off approach,
just a lighter touch.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
And I'm with you 100% sure. This makes my worst number 2. So I'm very close to you on this.
Right.
They, ruining his credibility, I don't see what it has to do with anything. If he has the tape, he has the tape. The tape is the tape.
Right.
Charles Manson could present this fucking tape in in a courtroom, and it would still show, Jamie Kennedy killing Jason Robards while Jon Voight fucking twirls his mustache over to the side.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. This was very incriminating.
Yeah.
And like, even if you wanted to argue that because it was so incriminating and it was so time sensitive, this is why they were so heavy handed. I would like to think somebody this high up in the NSA would have known this was probably the wrong move.
There's maybe there's a reason that he hasn't made deputy director.
Right. Right. Yeah, there you go.
Maybe he actually sucks at his job.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, including the fact, now I think, I don't know, you might have had a quibble on this, but there's a point where it looks like Will Smith's cell phone no longer works. And I mean, I feel like they disabled it. I can't be sure, but if they did, then that is super minus spy points. That's totally dumb. Like, let the man talk. Of course, I'm not sure what the capabilities were in 98 of being able to like get that phone information. Again, it's a case where we definitely know they can do it now.
Right.
Not sure they had those kind of relationships with the telecom companies in 98, but yeah. But there's so much that, you know, that lighter touch, like these guys should have been smart enough to be able to just like quietly follow Will Smith around and find out if he knows anything and figure out that he in fact does not.
Right.
But it wouldn't have made as exciting a movie.
Right. The man who knew absolutely nothing.
Right. Let's cut it here and call that part 1. We have talked about the stakes of the movie and so far have primarily focused on the villainous side of things. Jon Voight's nefarious misuse of the NSA surveillance apparatus against Will Smith, who doesn't yet have any idea why his government has suddenly turned brutally against him. In the second half of the film, Smith's encounter with Gene Hackman's paranoid ex-NSA operative is going to create at least the opportunity to turn this entirely one-sided battle of wits into something at least vaguely resembling a fair fight. And that's what we're going to discuss in part 2, coming up next week. Meanwhile, I ask you, are you enjoying the show? If so, please take a moment to rate and review us on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. But you know what really helps us out? Mention this podcast to a friend that you think might like it. There's no better way to help an indie podcast like this grow. It's the only way we can do it, just one listener at a time. And you're the key to that. Thank you.
The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.